Hi, I'm Jerry Carter with the Sierra Crest Business Law Group. I'd like to talk to people who are considering buying a business. And I want to talk about the four things that you need to get right when you're buying a business. So the first thing you need to get right when you're buying a business is you absolutely need to know what you're buying and also whether it really exists in the business. And typical things that people buy when they're buying a business, it would include the name, the telephone number, accounts receivable. You'll probably want a non-competition agreement from your seller. So when you're buying a business, it's important to know what is included in the sale. You want to make sure that when the transfer happens, that you can carry on all of the functions of that business, that you'll have a place to do it, that you'll have the customer relationships, that you'll have the equipment, the inventory, the name, all the things that are important to you to run that business. And there's a phrase that we often use in buying and selling businesses called due diligence. One of the purposes of the due diligence is to nail down what really exists in the business that we know for sure is there that will transfer to you when you buy it. So that's number one. The second thing, which is closely related, is you need to know and have a handle on what are the liabilities and responsibilities of the business that you're going to inherit once you buy that business. And so there are going to be some things that are known to everybody, and you'll agree with the seller who's going to have that responsibility. You'll agree to assume some of the liabilities. There are other things that may be hidden either intentionally or unintentionally that you need to turn over some rocks, you need to look through the books to get a handle on, to know what kind of liabilities could come back and bite you down the road after you buy that business. And so that process of turning over the rocks and looking at the books is also part of the due diligence process. Okay, the third thing that you need to get right when you buy the business is when you walk away from that transaction, you still need to have negotiating leverage, because things probably will go wrong in the future, and you need to be ready to have a subsequent conversation with your seller about those things when they go wrong. So the first thing that happens in a purchase and sale agreement is that the seller makes promises to the buyer about the state of affairs of the business and about the absence of liabilities, and the seller is going to agree to indemnify you, which is to stand behind you, defend you, pay you money if any of those promises are not true and they turn out to be problems for you later. So the first step in protecting yourself in the future is to get that promise, get that indemnity. The second step is to secure that promise, to get some recourse if the promise turns out not to be true, because if you can't get recourse, then you just have a nice promise that you can frame on the wall, but you can't do anything with it. And so things that happen in that sense are holdbacks. You may hold back part of the purchase price for up to a year to stand there and be your collateral in case something goes wrong. If you're paying for the business over time, then you'll probably want to have the right to set off those payments against problems that were not supposed to surface. And so there's a lot of negotiation that goes back and forth in there, but the basic principle is that when you buy the business, you need to plan on future dealings with your seller if things go wrong, and you need to have some negotiating leverage so that you can solve problems with a minimum of expense and difficulty. And then the fourth thing that you really have to get right, and you can't not get it right when you're buying a business, is you need to make sure that the whole business is transferable. There are a lot of aspects of a lot of businesses that don't automatically transfer to a new buyer. And so I'm talking about things like governmental licenses that may be held by an individual within the seller organization, landlord consents. If your seller leases space, then the landlord is probably going to have a veto power over a new tenant who's taking over the space. I'm talking about maybe there are people out there who have a right of first refusal on some or all of that business. A lot of times you need to make sure that if your seller is a corporation or a limited liability company, you've got to make sure you have sign off from all of the shareholders, or at least a sufficient number of shareholders that you're comfortable moving forward with it. And so I'm putting this under the broader category of transferability issues, where people other than the seller have some say-so in whether that crucial aspect of the business is transferred to you. And so that's number 4. You've got to make sure that all those issues are resolved so that you receive the business from the seller and from anybody else who needs to sign off. All right, so those are the 4 things that you need to get right so that you can have a successful purchase of a business, at least here in Nevada. Now, where do you go from here? If you've got questions about these aspects of purchasing a business, or perhaps other aspects of purchasing a business, we'd love to have a conversation with you to help set you on the road to a successful business purchase. You can call us at 775-448-6070, and we'd be happy to talk to you to make sure that you know going into your purchase transaction what you need to do to make it a success.